Well, hi there. Um, so we're doing a time-lapse expedition today as my first video. And we're going to be talking about the all-seeing eye. And I kind of wanted to start this video off talking about the science behind our eyes. Our eyes are very important. It helps us see the world. And that, I feel, is like pretty cool. So basically, our eyes focus light on sensitive retinas, and the light kind of dispatches, sending electromechanical impulses along parts of our eyes. And that kind of signals the brain to interpret an image. One thing that I know that's pretty cool is that we actually see things upside down, but our eyes kind of like flip flop it, so we see things right side up. So it's because of the concave in our eyes, because they're not perfect circles either. You can kind of see in the eye that I'm ironically drawing right now. But there's also a lot of symbolism behind the eye, and that means in all aspects there's a lot of symbolism used throughout history about our eyes. One that is very well known and that the US kind of stole throughout centuries is called the all-seeing eye. It is known as the Great Seal of the United States of America. Also called the watchful eye. Basically, God watches over mankind. But its roots come from Egypt, the Eye of Horus, which I probably should have done some background research, but I can come back to that in a bit. But basically, on the dollar bill, it has that little eyeball, which everybody seems to throw a lot of conspiracy theories about. It belongs to the seal of Freeman's and alchemy. It's a secret organization within the Catholic Church that has gone on for many centuries, and it's really interesting. National Treasure kind of did a fun take on that, which not too long after I watched that recently, I found out that my grandmother was kind of a part of basically a modern Freemasons kind of thing. It's called the Order of the Eastern Eye. It's really weird. I need to look more into it and find out what my great-grandmother was a part of. The eye is also known as the moon of the soul, which is basically the first thing when someone dies is that they close their eyes, and it's always been acknowledged as the window to our soul. It's really important. Like when you look at someone, you're engaged in that kind of eye contact, and you're looking into someone's body. It's a whole, it's an orifice kind of with just a little bit of skin, but it's how to acknowledge someone else's existence. It's actually like super fucking cool. I shouldn't curse. My bad. Another thing, which is, I believe, in the eastern part of the world, the third eye, which is kind of like acknowledged as the God within us. It is the also represented by a dot of Bindu, the higher self, free of ego consciousness. So, in some cultures, they have a dot right above and between their eyes, and it kind of acknowledges that self-presence of the consciousness, and just having that mindfulness, I guess. It's really cool, actually, and it's in a lot of practices, especially in Buddhism. The higher self is very praised, and it's a very respectful culture, and I respect it. It's really cool. Another thing that I'm probably going to talk a little bit about is more so the importance of how we use our eyes, and especially in a society of today where there's so many distractions in life, for getting our eyes captured and sucked into everything around us. Like, literally. What is the whole point of marketing? It's visuals. What is the whole point of entertainment? Visuals. And it's not the whole point, but it's a huge part of it, because the first thing that we do that captures our attention is what captures our eyes. What entertains our eyes entertains and stimulates our brain. And basically, it's another way of finding some sort of pleasure. And there's different variations of that. We tend to find a lot of pleasure through visuals and sound, and our senses, of course. But with visuals, when we look at someone and we're paying attention and we're giving them our attention, there's a pleasure that comes from that, of acknowledging and an authentic acknowledgement from someone. So, and that's why conversations can be so difficult, is because it's hard to give someone that eye contact. Sometimes it can feel strange, it can feel kind of awkward, but at the same time, it is so important to us to look at the other person and acknowledge the fact that, hey, I'm spending this time with you and giving you my full attention. And it's a huge part of eye contact. Another thing that's really cool is that when you're on a date with someone, and people, there's a lot of statistics that show that people find it more attractive if you can hold eye contact in like important moments and make something more enticing, more maybe a little invigorating, especially when that moment comes right before you're going to kiss someone. You have that really strong, passionate eye contact. It's all because you're looking at someone and giving that kind of attention to someone that means so deeply to another person. And I found that extremely important, and it took a serious event in my life for me to kind of like realize that. And I'm sure people who have spent a lot of time by themselves, or even people who have family members where you talk to someone but they don't give you that attention, and it kind of sucks. It makes you feel unimportant, it makes you feel less, and that's the gravity of our attention in life. Another thing is that it's so easy to get distracted. That's another thing about our eyeballs, is that they like to get distracted. They're always on the watch. Get it? But and so what's the word? It is our primal instinct to always stay on watch. So that's why nowadays, since we're not necessarily always in danger anymore, because we're not trying to survive technically as much as we used to, like we don't have to run away from like wild animals that are trying to kill us. We don't have that kind of danger around us as much anymore. So instead, our eyes are looking for something, anything that could set us in a direction. And so sometimes it's really hard to control that, especially in today's world where there's so many screens. I mean, you're probably getting distracted right now. You could have been scrolling through YouTube and then come across a video, But how do you manage that? How do you value your attention? Where do you put that attention to things that mean something to you? Or even balance the fact that you want to focus your eyes on your work, but you don't want to get too tied into that, and you need to give your eyes a break. Where do you draw the line is very important. And that's something I personally struggle with too. Because I have struggled with ADHD my whole life, and all my senses are very amplified, and it can get very overstimulating. And one thing is that my visuals are so important to me. I'm hyper visual, and I see everything. I notice a lot of things, and it's very distracting. So I get so much anxiety if I spend too much time scrolling on Instagram, or getting caught up in wanting to buy something online, stuff like that. I actually don't spend a lot of time on my phone because it's too distracting for me. And which I won't complain. I'm kind of grateful for that. But it kind of took me a while to realize that I was spending like 4 to 5 hours scrolling on Instagram, talking to people, or not even talking to people, just looking for something to pleasure my eyes. And I had to really change that about myself if I wanted to get my art going. And so I had to redirect my eyes, how to keep my space, my environment clean, so that I'm not distracted by everything that is around me. I make sure that my environment is very appealing. So like, I have a lot of organic colors in my room. My color scheme is very important because it impacts my eyes and impacts my mood and overall impacts me in general. And so I am very particular now, even though I have been a very messy individual, very unorganized, literally my entire life. And it took me this long to realize how important keeping your visual distraction to a very minimal to be able to focus on the things that really matter to me. And so now we're going to move on to talking about the value of our attention, how it is beneficial and how it's used against us. And so let's talk about the negative. Let's get it out of the way real quick. So our attention is easily manipulated. And I grew up with my dad working in corporate business for a very long time. And so he's taught me a lot about marketing. And in fact, he's taught me so much that I've used it against him without even knowing that I did that. And what's crazy is that marketing is borderline very manipulative, but it could be for good things and it could be for just money making or even bad things. And so marketing really atones to your eyes, what looks good, what looks trustful, what's repetitive. And so a marketing strategy, I don't exactly what it's called, but one way is repetition and visuals. And so if you repeat something visually, like commercials, it's repetitive. You see it a lot, and you see people talk about it a lot, and reviews, and it looks appealing. You're gonna trust it more. You're gonna be distracted. You're gonna see it. You're gonna be like, okay, maybe I do want that product because the way that they're presenting it visually, and how often. That's another way that our attention is very manipulated is marketing, and it's used absolutely everywhere. Small businesses, big businesses. It's social media is a huge one. Even though it's technically a media, it is still used as a business. And so there is strategies to use visuals, like the algorithm has changed. It's made it more wanting to have the visual appeal and that attention. So a lot of people will be spending their time on Instagram looking for visual appealing things or wanting to create a visual appealing account to build that following, which ironically I'm trying to do. But that is one way that our eyes and our visuals and our attention can be very, very manipulated. And I'm going to cut towards the more positive aspect. How do we value our attention? Who do we give it to? Why is it so important that we value our attention? And the huge reason is because it is limited. Our attention is limited to time. And so how do we pay attention to that? And so recently I have been very, very, very scatterbrained. And wait, hold on. I think this is a very funny moment.
Wait.
Fuck. Goddamn. I'm almost there. I think I knocked something of yours over.
I mean, it's okay.
It was awful the second getting inside the fucking house.
Did you get locked out?
I locked myself out like a genius. That was open.
Yes, please.
Cool.
Yep, that's our door because I need a new key.
It's her door because she needs a new key.
Yep. I need to put this back to where it was. Wait.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you remember that security thing you gave me for the defense? the screwy thing for the headphones went?
So there's a drawer over there and that little antique box thing. It has one of those.
Also, I think we should put some tape on this because it's like,
There's also duct tape in a little shelf thing over there.
cool, we'll do that.
Do those pants fit you?
They're falling down. But yes, they fit me pretty well. I just need a belt.
And before we got distracted, our attention is very valuable. And in the sense that I mean that is that how do we dedicate our attention and our time to what is actually important to us? Because technically, if you think about time and where you spend your attention, it shows what your main focus is in life. And a lot of the times, we don't even know that we're wasting time, or it could be considered wasting time. So let's just say if you at least get a good 8 hours of sleep, you already only have about 16 hours of that day. And so, what are you doing with that time? You wake up, you have your morning routine, maybe you have coffee, maybe you look at your phone for an hour or 4, or you play video games at the end of the day. But in between all that, who are you talking to? Who are you looking at? What are you spending with that time? How are you getting distracted? And a lot of it is very unconscious. And so I've really taken control the best I can by kind of like scheduling my time and putting time aside to the things I actually want to focus on. I actually did that with this video. I scheduled time so that I can focus and direct my eyes and think about the things that really matter to me. And if there's one thing that I've learned from that, this last week or two that I've been scheduling my time, is that I have really felt like I've been having higher quality of productiveness. I've been dedicating my attention to things that matter to me. I've been dedicating time to what I want to create with my art and my videos and my media, and how I want to spend time with my friends, my boyfriend, and my dad and my mom. And so being able to do that has made me realize how important our attention is and how we use our eyes in that. There's a lot of times where I'm on high speed and I'm so focused, or I'm moving so fast, and I'm seeing everything. Everything is so stimulating, very visual to me. I get so caught up. And sometimes it just takes a second and for me to just not take something as serious. And sometimes that person is my boyfriend, and he kind of like slows me down and look at the details again and see things a bit slower so I don't lose control in my distractions. Kind of bring it down a notch so that I can move forward a notch, if that makes any sense. But yeah, that's about where this comes down to, is what are we going to do with our eyes? How important is that to us, and how does that make other people feel? You know? And so I've learned a lot about this, and it made me realize that I have a lot more to learn about my friends by dedicating that attention to them too. But that's about it. So thank you for watching. I hope that this helped you think about things that is new, or reminded you of things that are important to you. And yeah, I hope you have a good day. Bye, y'all.